Hey, hey, how's it going? Welcome back to another Off-World Live 360 rendering tips live stream. We have these Hangouts every Wednesday, and it's been quite a journey so far. We're pretty deep into getting some of the best quality out of renders out of Unreal Engine in the quickest time possible. And yeah, most recently we've figured out some interesting stuff about how anti-aliasing can improve fast-moving emissive animations and improve the kind of passing of emissive materials over the top of other kind of reflective materials. So the most recent or the past few streams have been about figuring out the optimum rendering settings. So we got into a really good place with that. So I thought it'd be quite good to take a bit of a segue towards additional post-process materials, uh, also known as compositing passes in post-production software. So this is an example of quite a cool thing you could do with a depth map. And there's a tutorial on doing this in After Effects. This depth scanner effect. So we can see that they use this depth buffer, depth pass, which is a black and white image that shows the closest objects as being a black value, furthest away objects as being white. And they've layered that over this image to decide how deep their effect goes. So you're almost working in 3D after the fact of rendering, which is great. So these compositing passes are kind of traditionally with like a flat image like this, you can use kind of like AI filters. DaVinci's got a depth map extractor, but in Unreal, because we're dealing with 3D software, we have access to all the buffers that make up the 3D image. So yeah, another use of this might be something like this, where you take this depth map and you use it for a distance-based blur effect. So just a regular blur in space won't really have any sense of where the edges of these books are in these bookshelves. So using a depth map, you can get some way nicer compositing effects. It's not just depth maps, there's loads of other uses. Let me see if I've got the video up here somewhere. Not this one. It was someone doing some great stuff with depth maps, or all compositing passes in Blender. Which is kind of hopefully where we're going to end up at this guy's kind of level of compositing. I'm not really a compositing expert, so I'm kind of learning this stuff. But what I can give a lot of information on is getting these passes out of Unreal the right way. But yeah, this guy is doing loads of stuff with look how many passes he's got out. So he's got main image, alpha, depth map that we've talked about. Got this mist pass, normal, deferred something, deferred indirect lighting, deferred direct lighting, probably, deferred color, glossy, don't know what volume is, emissive perhaps, environment, shadow, ambient occlusion, noisy images. So you can use all of these layers as a kind of packed EXR to give yourself lots of flexibility when rendering in post, when editing in post. Yes, gets into real real high level film editing stuff. And sort of, yeah, the flexibility is awesome because you can kind of, what can we look at? He's sort of picking up on some of these highlights. He's like, I want just this edge of this flying saucer thing, and just change the color of just that in post, and these floor highlights. And sort of like he's looking at changing like the specular on the edge of some of these rocks and things. So, you know, if you don't want to author all of that stuff in Engine, you can access these kind of buffers to output all of these different layers as part of a single EXR file and then run them into DaVinci. I started off by doing like a really simple splitting of an EXR image from DaVinci. So we do have some layers here, which we can show this setup, but I don't know if it's even worth showing it really because you want to get into this node-based setup really. But it, I guess, what this does show you is that you can go in, find a EXR image and pick from its layers in the sort of simplest form. So it shows the layers are in there. Let's look at grabbing a load of these layers out of Unreal. How we can best do that. So I've got a scene in Unreal. I thought this moving through some trees kind of shot would be quite interesting. Maybe we've got some cool depth-based effects or something. And yeah, where you can find the buffers that we're going to want to access is in these kind of view modes here. We have buffer visualizations. So these work for the viewport. We're changing the viewport up here. But to change it in, because I'm currently piloting the 360 camera, to change it in the 360 camera, we have a setting down here for visualization type, which contains all the same buffers. So we can look through these. Got the scene depth. What's another interesting one? Perhaps ambient occlusion. Maybe I'm using, so this is if you're using Lumen ambient occlusion, but perhaps I'm not. Yeah, so I just got regular ambient occlusion here. So I don't know, maybe you could start to see how using materials like this as passes, maybe as a mask for like wherever these dark areas are. Let's, you know, boost some colors, change some colors. That's where this stuff starts to get useful. Do we have any velocity? You can see when I'm moving really quick there, it starts to update the velocity. So that's how fast things are moving in the scene. This perhaps isn't a very good example for it. Maybe it needs tweaking, that pass. But what else can we use? What else could we potentially use? Roughness map, depending on how rough stuff is. You could use this to then boost the glossiness of the things that are rougher in the scene, have higher roughness in the scene. So you can see how this could really help you edit stuff in post. So yeah, so we can view them here, but to kind of render them out, what we can do is add these as additional post-process materials. And you can find all of these under engine content and searching buffer, just buffer. And here we see post-process materials that match this whole list of buffers. So I think you find all of these here. Oh yeah, one that I didn't find was material ambient occlusion. So that could be an interesting topic if you're using lumen ambient occlusion. How do you access that as one of these? Not sure. But essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take these materials, go into movie render queue, and add them in the 360 rendering pass. We can add them down here, additional post-process materials. You got this array where you can add materials. So yeah, custom stencil, for example, you can pop that in here. You can name it. Set it to enabled. You can tell it to use high precision if you're looking for quality in bit depth. Also, you can add extra anti-aliasing samples to smooth out these passes, because they should be. You got this confusing thing with whether the pass is where it's rendered, blendable location. This is rendered after tone mapping, so this by default wouldn't have any anti-aliasing. So you can change it to before depth of field. Yeah, I think that would be the place you would want it for it to be like the smoothest, most workable image. But yeah, we'll get into that. But yeah, this is where you add these materials. I'm going to delete this for now. But what I did is I just grabbed all of these and copied them into my own folder because I might want to tweak some of these. One that I have tweaked so far already is the custom depth, because I wanted to kind of create something that would just give different objects different colors, kind of like a this might be a lot of information if you have not looked into this, but kind of like a cryptomat. So cryptomat is worth looking up if you're not familiar. It just gives different groups of objects different colors so that you can just isolate objects really quickly. Unreal Unreal does give us cryptomat, but we don't support it currently, so I was just looking at a workaround using custom stencil. But custom stencil, you could see how it might be quite useful anyway. So what custom stencil does is, for example, I've selected all the trees, and then you can say stencil, if I type custom, render custom depth pass, custom depth stencil value set to 1. And then what this does is, if you use the buffer visualization for custom stencil, it will show up as, you know, this value 1. You can see we've got a 2 down here because this has a custom stencil value of 2. You can change it to 3 if I need. So it's like a really nice way of grabbing this kind of these masks for actor-based masks. So yeah, that's a super useful pass. I just needed to tweak it a little bit because I don't want it to have this 1 over the top. I just want it just colors. So yeah, that's why I started sort of copying these materials into my own folder. We go into the custom stencil material. You can kind of see that we've got some screen aligned UVs, which was like the first clue that told me this is probably about this. So we're talking about this one thing because that's all screen aligned. It's staying still no matter where I move. So I was like, what if I just take out all of that, apply it, but we're not looking at my material here because we're looking at the actual buffer, which is the original material. But if we look through a post-process material, Post Pro matte. We got the custom stencil material that I made. We turn that on instead onto the camera. We've now got just the color to work with without the number over the top. And obviously all these icons are just can be hidden with G. So you can get a really good preview of what that custom stencil is looking like. Oh, I've got some rotation in my sequence. Yeah, so custom stencil, pretty cool one. This, you know, even custom post-process materials can be added in the additional post-process materials here. So that can be one of our layers. Also another one that's kind of interesting that I think I have in another project. There might be a funny one. I'll see if I can open the project. But it's another one that doesn't come by default with the 360 camera at the moment, but it's a feature we're going to be working in. But it throws up some quite interesting stuff of how you can create your own custom post-process materials and kind of create create passes that might be useful to you. Oh, and my epic library has frozen. Oh yeah, it's really frozen. Okay, see if we can find it here. Let's see. Can't remember what the project was called. If I could scroll down in my Epic library, I would be able to see the project. Of course. I wonder if I can just like hard reset the library, the launcher. Cool. Nice. Yeah, so let's open up project where I made the kind of clay material as well. Because yeah, this could be kind of useful. Clay material, for example. Be something like this. I think why this is useful is that it just gives a sense of the lighting in the scene and the composition without having a massive render overhead. So I think that's what clay renders are for. I'm not a compositor, but I could see the use in that. You can get a sense, it can do some rushes and some feedback. Looks like maybe they're actually using this for some final shading over the top of a bit of a composite here. So yeah, I could see that use for it as well. Yeah, that would be really cool. Interesting. In Blender, they use an override material. That could be a way to doing it in Unreal as well, actually. But I was trying to do it with a post-process material. See if I can pull it up. Oh, taking a second. do. Nice. I think I put it in post-process materials, in the post-process volume. Yeah, so yeah, detail lighting view mode, basically. This is as close as I've got so far to creating a clay shader. I've just been sort of chatting to Gemini a little bit, and it's been helping me make this shader to make everything grey, basically. And then we can see how it compares to the detail lighting here. It's not exactly the same. I don't really get why we still get blue light shafts here, because I don't think that would be ideal, actually. You could probably turn that off with some console command. The sky is also blue in this one. So, like, I don't know, arguably, is mine better? I don't know. I guess that's a combination of both, isn't it? Yeah, don't know. But yeah, I feel like it's something you could make in a bit of a more advanced way than I have in this post-process volume. But yeah, it's kind of taking... So this is a way we can like access another way we can access buffers for post-process materials. So here we see the same list again of like specular, opacity, roughness, ambient occlusion. So here we can take the buffers. Detail lighting isn't one of these buffers that we can take. It's kind of, I don't know. It's a material, what is it? Let's see. It's a deferred render pass, I guess. So I guess that's deferred is a different place in the render pipeline instead of these buffers, because these buffers are kind of the actual creation of the image, whereas a deferred pass might mean that, let's look it up. Deferred pass. What is the difference between a deferred pass and a buffer, Unreal Engine? Yeah, buffer is the data storage, a set of textures. So that's the set of textures that we see. Overview, for example. All of these textures go into making the final 3D image. Whereas deferred pass is an operation or step that uses that data. So it's a separate, so this is all pre-final image. Deferred pass would be another final image that comes out of a different set of these textures. So in theory, if you select the right set of these textures and combine them in the right way in this post-process material, you should get exactly the same as the detail lighting. Ooh. Whoa, wireframe view by accident. As this detail lighting pass. But for now, I've done almost the same thing. Kind of having this kind of white overlay combining a specular pass and just a full color. This is all the whole color pass. So we got all the color. We got this specular dividing that. We're kind of getting a black and white image there. Multiplying a kind of grayer value to bring down the brightness. definitely could be brought down more, looks like. And then I think this was to bring back the skybox. So it's saying like if it's a value that's very, very low, whereas it's showing all of this as black, and it's like if it's that value, then just show it, basically, instead of turning off far away parts of the kind of buffer. So yeah, maybe, yeah, I'm sure someone would be able to create a more accurate detail lighting pass, but it just shows that you can create your own post-process materials and add those as buffers if you feel like that's useful. Going back to the other project, obviously the custom stencil is kind of a slightly custom material as well. But having said that, we do have on our roadmap Cryptomat, and these detailed detail lighting view modes. There's more view modes in this list. Lighting only, reflections only, unlit. So yeah, giving access to all of those would be really useful. So to add these into like any XR, say, you can go EXR sequence 16-bit. I'm going to do DWAB compression because I don't want these files to be absolutely huge. You can kind of see how much compression is going on in these different formats by mousing over them. If I did all of these lossless, it would be wild file sizes, especially if the resolution is quite high and you got lots of layers. I'm just going to try and throw every layer at this render. Probably take ages to render. But then hopefully we've got loads of passes, loads of options to play with. I do think there is a note on adding anti-aliasing to get an extra smooth buffer pass. Oh yeah, that's another thing that we should probably check out. So 360 buffers, custom stencil does this before depth of field option fix what we're looking at here, where it's all kind of jaggedy moving around. There's no anti-aliasing or anything. I think that is this update location. Oh, it is. It is. Nice, 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 nice. Yeah. There's an overlay if you wanted. Would not need to do that. But yeah, you can see as we're going later down the line, we're getting more artifacts. So before depth of field, I guess if you were to do depth blur, this mask would then take that depth of field into account. So really, we need to change this blendable location for all of our custom materials here. So can we do that via property matrix? No. Doesn't look like it, weirdly. Can you not do that with materials bulk edit via property matrix? Surely you can do that. Surely you can do that. Let's try with like 2. Oops. Apparently not. Okay. Oh, I don't want to do this every time. Oh, it's gotta be bulk edit by property matrix. Because you can do that for, yeah, edit selection property matrix for materials. Isn't there, is it? Oh, geez. I really have to do that? It works for meshes. I guess because it's got like the kind of node-based material editor, maybe it's assuming I don't want to do something just to the main output node. And I guess that's why they do the whole hierarchy for materials, to be fair. Alright, let's just do a few and then we can treat it as a test for this anti-aliasing thing, I think. So that one is done. We have the blendable location scene color. Let's add that to the passes. Oh, this could be quite a manual process, couldn't it? Let's use 32-bit for that. Make sure we got the EXR. Make sure we got 32-bit intermediate bit depth here. Let's keep it. I don't want 2K. Let's do 3K. Let's save this as a preset. EXR passes. We could also make the color linear, couldn't we? Let's talk about that in another video. Color output. Next one, content browser. Custom depth is cool. Let's make sure this is nice and smooth for depth of field. Custom depth is a depth map for the chosen custom stencil buffer objects only, which is kind of cool. Base color. Let's do base color. I don't know what this. I don't think this will break anything doing before depth of field for everything. But I guess as a result, it's better than doing that for the engine content materials, probably. because there's probably a reason that they're applied where they are applied. Probably. Ambient occlusion. Blendable. Oops. Regular old ambient occlusion. Oh, is that not being used by the 360 camera in the same way as the viewport? Interesting. No. All right, let's look into that another time, how to use that properly. Anisotropy, anisotropy, anisotropy. Not sure what that is. Not doing anything there, so that's cool. Metallic, let's use that. That looks cool. Looking very motion blurry, isn't it? Whoa. Metallic. Let's add that. I wonder if this is going to break any of these. I don't know. Looks alright. I guess this metallic pass isn't too bad anyway. So let's leave it where it was set originally, which is just there. After depth of field, that's fine. If there's a shot where we're not using depth of field for this render anyway. Let's make sure it's our custom one, although it's not changed. Do we need every single pass to be 32-bit? I don't know if that's just going to massively increase the file size. Probably will. Maybe for this test, let's not do it for everyone. Opacity seemed kind of useful. It's like things with not 100% opacity. They're just fully white. Not sure how useful that one is. Let's do roughness for sure. I feel like that would be really useful. Remember to make sure it doesn't come out looking really anti-aliased, which it has the. It's like stable. It's not moving around too much. So let's keep that as it is as well. Name that one roughness. What else can we get out of here? World normal sounds good. This isn't looking too artifacty, so let's use that as is as well. What else has this guy used in his video? Depth pass. Did we do depth pass? I think we did. Environment pass. Oh, it's just the sky. Okay. Yeah, could see that being useful. So we could use our 1-0 logic from the other material to do something like that. And we could just use the black value from this, actually. Yeah, let's just do that. Easy. So we got that value. Missed pass. I feel like they're using depth for this as well, surely. Seen depth. Let's double check. Have seen depth on. Yeah, we don't have scene depth. Let's do that. And let's make, I think scene depth might need a bit of smoothing. I wonder why they put the custom stencil at the end of this chain and make it look so crumbly. See, scene depth is like that as well. So let's edit that material. To be for depth field. Oh, this one's still. Oh wait, no, that's cool. Because it will look good in this. Because we're editing this material. Stable. Stable, not jumping around everywhere. Use the render target to have a little closer look. And yeah, smooth. Smooth, nice, stable. So we're using that one, custom scene depth. Custom scene depth material, not custom scene depth material. Using high precision for that one, I feel like is good as well. Kind of got visible edges of the 360 camera here, which is an interesting one. Could maybe look into how to fix that. Let's see what else we might use. What else? What is the volumetric pass? Okay, that might just be adding the little smoke kind of card. They've got ambient occlusion. I do want to do the grey. So they've got glossy. I think that was kind of like roughness or specular for us. Oh, that's not actually doing anything. Might be able to use roughness for that. And then that clay one, maybe. Actually, yeah, let's literally just copy these nodes. Oops. Create a material. Ooh, and then we got that clay material. Let's just see what this looks like, just out of interest, actually. Detail. So yeah, it does still render kind of materials and textures like this, which I'm gonna try and fix that. I think that's an interesting thing to try and fix. Or do it via a material override or something. But let's just use that for this test anyway. Here. Let's see if doing this many passes is going to crash anything, because it's pretty colossal having all of these. Let's do it at 2K for now. Let's do it 2K. Just because of my singular computer. Anything else? Color. We got color. We got base color. Yeah, let's just do those then. Let's say just. That was loads. It'd be really interesting to try and work through all of these. Save that one. And might render this remote actually. EXR all passes. EXR passes all, I'll call it. Okay. Be interesting to see how long this takes. What is it at 2K? So if it does it fine, then we'll try a higher number. It's going to be doing each of the additional post-process materials. It's not just going to do them all at the same time, so it's going to add a time overhead, but it won't necessarily be like a resource overhead. We could have a little look in your performance tab. Got all of my cores getting pretty wild. A little spike in GPU, and that because of usage in the background. Let's see. I was going to render this remote, but no, CPU very high, GPU is not bad at all. So that is, once it's got to the last frame of this, it will have the EXR with all of these buffers in it. I guess perhaps, no, probably not. I'm going to say, because it's taking a buffer that's already used as part of the final deferred render, it wouldn't be too much more of an overhead to use to just output one of these buffers that's already being made. It's not taking crazy long. I guess it'd be interesting as a time test to see how it compares. A little. Ooh. Okay, so we did get a crash. GPU crash at 143. Oh, and it looks like we kept the post-process material on. So we're not going to get a default layer. Also, I forgot to check default layer. I also think these aren't anti-aliased. So we need to add some additional samples to make these smoother, because we need these soft edges here. So since there's a few things will change, I will just try and render this again. Might not show you the end result of this render because it's going to be probably useful for me to keep my computer not too resource heavy. By doing other things. I could have totally paused the render target here as well. But I'll show you that what we can do is add a default layer. 360 as in Tokyo. Tokyo sequence? No. It should be in here. Yeah. Compositing. So this one. Good job we saved the queue because that took ages. EXR passes. What we can also do is add render main pass, add default layer. Let's do stencil clip layers. Oh no, so yeah, additional will just be the default layer. So I mean, it will render the main pass because it's additional, surely. Then to hopefully make this a bit smoother, we're going to add some spatial samples. 5. And then we'll do temporal 5 as well. So this is going to take 10 times as long, but hopefully we'll get smooth passes out of it. So let's save it into our EXR all passes. Save this as 5 by 5 samples. Oops. And we'll render this out, but yeah, I'll probably jump off stream while this is rendering, but hopefully it's been interesting of how to get these passes out of Unreal. Next time we'll jump into DaVinci and look at using some of these passes in different ways. Hopefully I'll have some info on how to actually start using your depth maps and things for interesting effects. So yeah, thanks so much for tuning in and happy rendering. Hopefully this helps you to make some awesome immersive content in Unreal Engine. So have a good one.